A master is not just the teacher of their Padawan, they are also their protector. This is what was said about the duty of a Jedi Master by Grandmaster Vandar Tokair in the days of the Old Republic, an ancient member of Yoda's species. Unfortunately though, this would not be true in one very tragic incident. Greetings, Acolytes, and welcome back to the archives. Jedi Padawan Zane Carrick was not the best Jedi trainee out of the bunch. He was always late, he was constantly screwing up, and had a very untalented connection to the Force. When his master, along with the masters of all of his fellow Padawan friends, decreed that a knighting ceremony was to take place on the planet of Terminus, Zane didn't anticipate that he'd be among those to actually get knighted. When he showed up to the ceremony, he was late as usual, and the last thing he expected was to see the bodies of all of his friends lying dead on the feet of their masters. In the year 3963 BBY during the Mandalorian Wars, a group of Jedi Masters would mercilessly slaughter their own Padawans, all because of a terrifying vision they collectively shared. So what was this vision? What could possibly have led a group of well-renowned Jedi Masters to kill their own students in cold blood? And what happened following this? Well, my friends, in this two-part video series, we're going to first explore the story of the Knights of the Old Republic comic run, beginning in today's holocron with the vision that started it all, and caused a group of Jedi Masters to murder their Padawans in cold blood. Zane, his master Lucy and Dre, and the rest of the Padawans and their masters were all stationed on the crime-ridden planet of Terminus. After they graduated from their youngling class, they were all selected by each one of these masters and taken to Terminus to complete their trials. When the massacre of the Padawans happened though, it literally came out of nowhere. The masters had raised and trusted these Padawans, their students loving their masters in turn. Never was there any animosity between them until the day that Zane found all of his friends dead at the feet of the lightsaber-drawn Jedi. A chase would then ensue as Zane attempted to flee from the murderous Jedi Masters. Lucy and Dre, his own master, was accompanied by 4 others, all of them Jedi Consulars and Seers, all of those who were adept at looking into the future and even sensing important moments of the present. For the first couple of issues, Zane is on the run from the Jedi Masters and is forced to work with the same criminals that he had just tried to arrest in order to get off-world. Unfortunately for him, the Jedi Masters thought ahead and placed him as public enemy number 1, telling the people of Terminus that he was the one who slaughtered the other Padawans. Now a fugitive on the run, Zane attempts to figure out exactly why the Jedi would do such a thing. He knows they aren't Sith or Dark Jedi. He in fact states that his masters hate the Sith. He senses that none of them have turned to the dark side. But then he stops, that very thing tipping him off that something was very wrong. Jedi aren't allowed to hate, not even hate the Sith. Another thing that didn't add up was why a large group of consulars were stationed on a crime-ridden world, a place that Jedi Guardians should be taking care of. The only Guardian among them was Lucy and Dre, his own master. It was this fact that gave him the idea to retrace the steps of his Padawan group, seeing where they had been over the last few months, and see what had happened to make the masters change so suddenly. Zane and his newfound criminal friends would continue to run and dodge both the Jedi and the Terminus government. During this time, Zane would attempt to contact the Grand Master of the Order, Vandar Tokair on Dantooine, trying to explain the situation. Unfortunately for him though, the Grand Master didn't entirely believe the young Padawan. After all, the rest of the Jedi Masters had gone to the Grand Master first, and it was their word against that of a Padawan who was known to get into trouble. Even though Zane did everything to explain himself, the Grand Master wondered if he had, in fact, murdered his friends without remembering it in a moment of blindness, wondering if Zane had turned to the dark side. The communication with the Grand Master was cut short, and Zane decided to continue his mission to a nearby rogue moon, retracing the steps of his Padawan brothers. It was here where he would recover a damaged droid, one which happened to have a detailed holo in its memory bank showing the events that had transpired. On the moon, the Masters and their Padawans had donned spacesuits to traverse the area, as the Force flowed freely there. While the Padawans were each off doing missions with their masters, the Seers all sat in a circle to meditate upon the Force. And in this moment, they saw something absolutely horrific, brutal, something purely evil. Jedi Master Rana Tay, one of the Seers, found herself back on Terminus with the Jedi Temple on fire before she was suddenly struck down by a crimson lightsaber. Master Feln, another Jedi, was on his home planet, where then he too was murdered by a red blade. Only this time we see a bit more of this mysterious Sith Lord, a man in a large red suit. Then goes to the next Jedi, Master Zamar, as he sees himself in the Republic fleet, watching the conclusion of the Mandalorian Wars. The Mandalorian ships are turning and fleeing, and in this moment of triumph, a Republic ship turns and attacks the rest of his comrades, killing the Jedi in the process. And finally, Master Kanalia is on Coruscant, as she looks around and sees hundreds of dead Jedi. Terrified, she tries to run into the temple, only to see the same man in a large red suit, wielding a red blade. The Sith Lord drives through with his lightsaber, murdering the Jedi as well. Sensing something is very wrong, the only Guardian there, Lucien Dre, finally shakes the Jedi from their vision. All of them had been screaming and fighting at nothing. Finally, they all managed to collect themselves and corroborate with what they had all just seen: the return of the Sith, the death of the Jedi, and a man in red armor. Except they all noticed it wasn't really armor, it was a red envirosuit, the very same one that all of their Padawans were wearing in that moment. The Jedi Rana Te then speaks that she senses that they must kill their Padawans, all of them now. That they now know that one of the Padawans is the return of the Sith. Several of the Jedi begin to protest, the Jedi Master Zamar stating that the vision was unclear and that it lent to chaos, that they could not kill their Padawans if the vision wasn't clear. It was a warning though, many of the other Jedi said, something that they could not ignore through the Force itself. And they all agreed that the future of the galaxy was at stake, and that there could be no slip-ups. The Padawans must die. Although the imagery of the red envirosuit seemed completely arbitrary, Zane explains that the Jedi visions are complicated. One might see something in great detail like the spacesuit, but that it's possible that it is not literal, and that it represents a symbol. At that moment, all of the Jedi were having the single vision. All of the Padawans were wearing these suits, and putting two and two together was only natural for the seasoned Jedi seers. It was because of this that the Masters were led to believe that one of their own could rise up and bring the Sith back. And not only that, but destroy the Jedi and the Republic. Out of fear and a sense of the greater good, the Jedi solution was to slay their Padawans to prevent this future. In Lucien's words, they couldn't allow their personal bonds to keep them from their duty. If the hand threatens the limb, strike it off. This seems like the most extreme solution to possibly come of this though, but we later learned that Lucien and the four consulars call themselves the Jedi Covenant, and that Lucien explains that after Exar Kun's return, that there was a strong bond that formed between all of these masters. All four of them were the most talented seers in the entire Jedi Order, and it was their sacred duty to make sure what happened with Exar Kun never happened again. They all looked for the shatter point in history when the Sith would return, and then they had found it. They had sensed the future. They knew the Sith would return, and they had to do something about it. Exar Kun had changed things, and even when he was a young Padawan, he was not innocent. He had a future of great darkness, destruction, and death. In the minds of the Jedi who made up the Covenant to prevent such death, their own Padawans were not innocent either if their future spelled the same fate as Exar's. In the interest of the galaxy, they believed their duty was to intervene. And after this bold speech, Lucien goes to slay his Padawan to end their fears once and for all. After Lucien Dre attacked Zane though, he would be rescued by the very criminals that he had worked to bring to justice earlier. And sometime later, he would send a personal message to the Jedi Masters. "Hello, Master. I'm running now, but I've had time to reflect on your teachings. You say the living sometimes have to suffer to serve a larger goal. I've seen how you live by that. Well, I have a goal now too. Justice. For myself, for my friends, and for the people sacrificed to the plans of the so-called infallible. And it will definitely involve some suffering. Because you see, I've had a vision of my own. One day, one of you is going to confess and clear my name, and to make sure, I'm going to hunt down each and every one of you. The one that confesses lives. I don't care which one of you does it. It doesn't matter where they send you. You have a death mark now, same as me. Don't look for me, Lucien, because I'll find you." And if I do end up collapsing the Jedi Order, just remember one thing. It was you who started it. And as we learn over the next few comic issues, there is indeed a Dark Lord in the hiding. Though despite initial appearances, this would not be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because of the fact that unknown to any of them, the real Sith Lord was behind the scenes the entire time, manipulating these events to transpire exactly how he pleased, by pitting the fears of the Jedi against one another, using Lucy and Dre and the Jedi Covenant. All eyes were off of him for the real grand plan to take place, with this all eventually serving to the testament that Yoda would later explain to Anakin, that looking into the future was dangerous. This Sith Lord knew it was dangerous, and he preyed on the Jedi's fear. In the next holocron, my friends, we will be exploring the story of Hazen, the man everyone should have truthfully feared. Something else to remember about the Covenant is it was not formed at the Jedi Order's request. Rather, it were these 5 Jedi extremists who decided to take it upon themselves to do anything to prevent another Sith disaster. And unfortunately, their own fear and hatred for the Sith led them down this dark and horrific path. Anyway though, we hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you could leave a like, it would help us out tremendously. As always, may the Force be with you, and have a phenomenal day.